Why do global agreements on climate change exist, but the problem still continues? And why do countries like South Africa still struggle to meet the environmental targets? Now, if you don't understand this section properly, you are going to struggle with your higher order questions in paper 2. So let's break it down clearly. Hello there, and welcome to Homeschooling Adventures. In this particular video, we are going to be looking at the part 3 of our series, where we are going to be focusing on international measures that were introduced to ensure sustainability, a very key component of your exams at grade 12. In the previous lesson, we looked at how government ensures sustainability, but now we go one level higher. We look at international measures, because environmental problems are not local. They are global problems. Now let's start with the big idea. Environmental issues like climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss do not respect borders. For example, carbon emissions from one country can affect the weather patterns across the world. That is why countries must work together through international agreements. But perhaps before we look at these international measures, let's look at some of the key terms that all learners must understand. The first one is going to be biodiversity. Now, biodiversity refers to the variety of plant and animal life on the earth. Now, why is this important? It is important because the ecosystems depend on a balance. When biodiversity is lost, food chains are disrupted. Ecosystems, they collapse, and the natural resources become limited. This is why global action is needed. The second key term that all candidates must understand is the term chemical and hazardous waste. Now, another major global issue is chemical and hazardous waste. This includes industrial waste, toxic chemicals, and even nuclear waste. Now, the problem is many of these substances are dumped into rivers, into oceans, and even transported to poorer countries. This leads to water contamination, health risks, and long-term environmental damage. Third one is climate change. Now, climate change is mainly caused by greenhouse gas emissions. These gases trap the heat in the atmosphere and lead to global warming. This results in things like droughts, things like extreme weather conditions, and even a rising sea level. Now, because of these global problems, countries came together to form international agreements. Let's go through the most important ones you need to know for the purposes of your exams. The first one is the Stockholm Conference, which was held in 1972 in Sweden. This was the first major global meeting on environmental issues. Its main purpose was to raise awareness about the impact of human activities on the environment. Now, one of its biggest achievements was the creation of the United Nations Environment Programme, also known as the UNEP. However, the conference had a major weakness. It did not have any enforcing power. So while awareness had increased, the actual action was limited, as the resolutions could not be enforced. The next one we are going to look at is the CITES, now, which stands for the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. This agreement was introduced in 1973 in Washington, D.C. in the United States of America. The main goal was to control the trade on endangered animals and plants. For example, it helped reduce the illegal trade of animals like elephants and rhinos. But here's the problem. Illegal poaching and black market trade still continued. So even though the agreement exists, enforcement remains a challenge. And then first,
Africa is famous for its wild beauty lions roaring across golden plains, elephants marching through savannas, and vibrant jungles pulsing with life. But this magnificent picture hides a heartbreaking truth. Many of Africa's iconic animals are quietly vanishing. Their populations are shrinking fast due to poaching, deforestation, climate change, and human conflict. In today's video, we'll take you through the top 10 most endangered animals and Africa species fighting for survival in an increasingly hostile world. Let's uncover the threats they face, the steps being taken to save them, and why your awareness can make a difference. 1. Black rhinoceros. Hunted for their horn status, critically endangered. Estimated population, approximately 6,500. Once found all over sub-Saharan Africa, the black rhino has suffered drastic declines due to poaching. Its horn is falsely believed to have medicinal properties, making it a prime target for illegal wildlife trade. This has made the black rhino one of Africa's most endangered large mammals. Conservation efforts, including armed patrols, dehorning programs, and protected reserves like those in Kenya and Namibia, are helping stabilize some populations, but the threat remains real and constant. 2. African forest elephant. The vanishing giant status. Critically endangered. Population decline, over 86% in 30 years. The forest elephant, smaller and more elusive than the savanna elephant, plays a crucial role in maintaining Africa's rainforests. Unfortunately, its habitat is disappearing due to logging and agriculture, while ivory poachers relentlessly target them. Despite a global ivory trade ban, enforcement remains weak in some areas. Conservationists continue to fight to protect remaining populations through law enforcement, education, and habitat preservation. 3. African lion losing the crown status, vulnerable. Current population, approximately 20,000. The king of the jungle is no longer ruling vast territories. Lions have lost over 90% of their historic range due to human encroachment, poaching, and retaliation by farmers protecting livestock. Programs like Lion Guardians in Kenya are working with local communities to promote coexistence. But with only about 20,000 left in the wild, urgent action is needed to prevent further decline. 4. Mountain gorilla. Rising from the brink status. Endangered estimated population, approximately 1,100. Mountain gorillas live in the misty highlands of Rwanda, Uganda, and the DRC, threatened by war, poaching, disease, and habitat destruction. Their numbers once fell below 500, but now, thanks to ecotourism, veterinary programs, and dedicated rangers, their numbers are slowly growing. However, their future is still fragile. A single disease outbreak or civil conflict could erase decades of progress. 7. Grevy's zebra, a royal striped beauty status. Endangered population, approximately 2,500 grevies. Zebra is the largest and most endangered of the 3 zebra species. It is easily recognized by its thin, tight stripes and large ears. Native to northern Kenya and southern Ethiopia, these zebras compete with livestock for scarce water and grazing. Conservation programs are focusing on community-based land management to help wildlife and humans share resources peacefully. 8. Pancake tortoise, nature's flat wonder status. Critically endangered. Habitat, rocky hillsides of East Africa. The pancake tortoise is unique due to its flat, flexible shell, allowing it to squeeze into crevices for protection. But its distinct shape makes it highly desired in the illegal pet trade. Because it has a slow breeding rate and specific habitat needs, its numbers are dropping fast. Legal protections and captive breeding efforts are underway in Kenya and Tanzania. 9. Kihansi spray toad. The comeback story status, extinct in the wild. Original range, one gorge in Tanzania, the Kihansi. Spray toad was once found only in a small misty area near the Kihansi Falls. When a dam stopped the waterfall spray, its habitat disappeared, leading to extinction in the wild. Thankfully, toads were saved and bred in U.S. zoos. Thanks to artificial misting systems and reintroduction programs, the species has returned to its home, a rare conservation success. 10. Cross River gorilla. Ghost of the forest status. Critically endangered population. Approximately 300. The Cross River gorilla is Africa's most endangered great ape. It lives in remote mountain forests on the border of Nigeria and Cameroon. Extremely shy and sensitive to human activity, it is rarely seen. With its habitat split by logging and development, this gorilla faces extinction without urgent intervention. Conservationists are building forest corridors and working with local communities to protect what little habitat remains. Why these animals matter? Endangered animals are not just symbols of nature, they are vital parts of the ecosystem. Elephants open forests for other animals, lions control prey populations, and gorillas spread seeds across the jungle floor. Their loss affects the entire food chain and weakens the natural world we all depend on. By protecting them, we also protect biodiversity, water sources, tourism economies, and even climate stability.
Forward to 1992 in Brazil, the Rio Earth Summit was held in a town, Rio de Janeiro. This was a very important conference because its goal was to promote sustainable development, which means balancing economic growth with environmental protection. It introduced important frameworks like the Agenda 21 and also led to the creation of the UNFCCC, which is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. But again, many of its commitments were voluntary, which means countries could choose whether to implement them or not. But perhaps before we move on, let's just try and zero on the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Now, the UNFCCC was created to stabilize greenhouse gas emissions. It brought countries together to discuss and negotiate climate action. But the major limitation is this: there are no strict penalties for countries that fail to meet the targets. So its success, it depends on individual countries' cooperation. In 1997, in Japan, Kyoto Protocol was introduced. Its main goal was to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Now, this agreement was stronger because it introduced legally binding targets for developed countries. However, it faced serious challenges because the United States withdrew from the agreement and developing countries were not required to meet targets. This reduced its overall effectiveness. Now, fast forward to 2002, the World Summit on Sustainable Development, which we now popularly know as the Johannesburg Summit, was held in 2002 in South Africa. Its focus was not just a discussion, but the implementation side of things. It aimed to address issues like poverty, clean water, and energy access. However, progress has been slow, especially in developing countries, mainly due to lack of funding and weak enforcement policies by the individual countries. Now, in 2015, in the place called Paris in France, the Paris Agreement was signed. Its main goal was to limit global warming to below 2 degrees Celsius. Here is what makes it different. Every country sets its own targets. Now, here is what makes it different. Every country sets its own targets. These are called nationally determined contributions. This makes the agreement flexible and encourages global participation. But there is a problem. Those targets are not strictly enforced, so many countries, they fail to meet them. Now, also in 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals were introduced. Now, let's just say, perhaps someone will be asking, what are the SDGs, or what does it mean? And how do they apply to the greater context of economics? Now, the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, are a set of 17 global goals that were introduced in 2015. They aim to achieve sustainability by 2030. Now, this includes ending poverty, clean water access, and also climate action. Perhaps before we continue, let's just watch this video.
It is so decided. In 2015, world leaders made a promise for the well-being of all people and the planet.
We need action
to reach the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. There's progress in life expectancy and disease prevention. There's greater gender parity in management positions. Many developing economies have seen a growing middle class. Safe sanitation and basic hygiene services are becoming the norm. More than 95% of the global population have access to mobile broadband networks. The future of energy is cleaner. Unfortunately, at the halfway point, only 15% of SDG targets are on track, and more than a third are stagnated or in regression. More than 780 million people face chronic hunger. More than 100 million families are fleeing war, conflict, and human rights violations. Social protection, education, and healthcare are still out of reach for too many. Human rights are under assault. With the planet warming at 1.1 degrees Celsius, extreme weather is wreaking devastation around the world. Biodiversity is being lost at an alarming rate. These global threats must be overcome with smarter solutions, renewed ambition and determination, and recognition of what has not succeeded in the past. We must commit investments from billions to trillions in increasing social protection and decent jobs, transforming education, digitalization, energy transition, food system transition, and environmental protection. To get there, we need global solidarity for the planet, for people, for generations to come.
No excuses, no delays. Promises made must be promises kept.
Now, someone might be asking, so why have these goals failed to achieve what they sought to achieve by 2030? At the point when I'm recording this video in 2026, still, most of the countries have not achieved the majority of those goals. Now, the main reason that has caused the goals not to be achieved is developing countries often lack the resources to fully achieve these goals. And progress across all countries has not been the same. It has been uneven. Right, before we end, let's look at what indigenous knowledge is, because it's also another key component for your exams. Now, this refers to traditional practices that are used by local communities. These methods are often sustainable, they are often cost-effective, and they are often environmentally friendly. For example, rainwater harvesting, as well as sustainable farming techniques. This knowledge plays an important role in supporting environmental sustainability. Now, before we finish this lesson, let's see whether you can actually apply what we have learned to an examination question. This is the type of questions you can expect in your economics paper 2. I'm going to give you a past exam question from the 2025, November 2025 paper 2 paper, and don't just listen to me giving you the answers. Pause the video and read each question carefully and try to answer it yourself. You can pause the video. All right, so now I'm back with the answers. The first question, 3.3.1, it says identify the international agreement that refers to the World Summit on Sustainable Development. That one is a 1 mark. So it means you have got to identify the international agreement and then you just give us the international agreement. So the answer is the Johannesburg Summit, also known as the World Summit on Sustainable Development, or if you have written WSSD, which was held in Johannesburg in South Africa. That was in 2002. So you can just accept that correct. If you wrote WSSD, or you wrote the World Summit on Sustainable Development, or you gave us the answer, the Johannesburg Summit, accept that as correct. State the environmental problem that relates to the removal of trees. Now, the correct answer, the removal of trees, is called deforestation. So in this particular case, the correct answer there is deforestation. And then question 3.3.3, briefly describe the term marketable permits. Okay, this one is an important connection to our part 2, where we discussed the government measures to intervene on environmental sustainability. Now, a marketable permit is a permit that is issued by the government that allows firms to produce a specified amount of pollution or use a specified amount of environmental resources. That would be the answer. And then the question 3.3.4, explain the impact of loss of indigenous knowledge on the environment. Remember, indigenous knowledge refers to traditional knowledge and practices that have been developed by local communities over generations. And this knowledge can help communities manage natural resources sustainably. For example, we looked at traditional farming, water conservation measures, land management practices. These may actually help in protecting the environment. Now, when this knowledge is lost, the communities may lose sustainable ways of managing the natural resources. This can contribute to environmental degradation, such as soil erosion, even loss of biodiversity, and the inefficient use of natural resources. Now, the question here is asking about us to explain the impact of the loss of indigenous knowledge on the environment. So, Elena could have just said, the loss of indigenous knowledge may result in the loss of sustainable traditional practices. This can lead to environmental degradation through activities such as poor land management and overuse of the natural resources. Okay, that will be accepted as correct. Then the next one, the question 3.3.5, it reads, why do markets fail to ensure environmental sustainability? Now, this is a high value question, so I will spend more time here. I'm going to spend a bit more time here. Now we come to the 4 mark questions. Notice the instruction 2 times 2. This means that you need to give 2 reasons and explain each reason. Don't simply list 2 reasons. Each reason needs an explanation. Now, reason number 1. Markets do not take social cost and benefits into account. Now, a firm may consider, what we mean there is, a firm may consider its private cost when producing a product. However, its production may create pollution and imposes cost on society. These costs are called external costs because the firm does not bear the full social cost. It may produce more than the socially desirable amount. Now, the second reason is the market mechanisms can result in overuse of environmental resources. Now, environmental resources such as clean water or clean air, the forests, the wildlife, may not have clearly defined or property rights. As a result, producers and consumers may overuse these resources because environmental cost is not fully reflected in their market price. Now, these are the possible answers that I expected learners to give on this particular formal question. I don't know what is your answer. You can make a comment in the comment section and then we'll be able to discuss your answer there. Now, what can we say about all this? It can be concluded that international measures are important, but their effectiveness is limited, and without strong cooperation between governments and the population, the enforcement can be very difficult. Okay, now we have now completed part 1, where we looked at environmental problems, part 2, where we looked at government measures, and part 3, where we have looked at international measures. This is the full exam topic that we have covered. If you understand all the 3 parts, you are in a strong position for your paper 2. If you haven't watched the previous parts, I invite you to go back and watch them now. But let me know in the comment section, which agreements do you think is the most effective? Is it the Kyoto Protocol or the Paris Agreement? Remember, if this video helped you, remember to like, subscribe, and also share with your friends. When you subscribe, remember to turn on your notification bell so that you can always be getting notifications as and when I release these videos. All the best in your studies, and thank you for watching. Meet you in the coming series. Have a good day.